Philip Kimumwe says, anything new or the usual self-praise with the taxpayers' money and debts that our great-grandchildren are going to struggle repaying? Just asking. Thank you very much. Very, very interesting comments. Some of them we just have to skip fast past them. You have anything that you want to share with us on your side?
Well, one of our top fans, Chen Silver, is saying Article 101, subsection 1 of actually should be scrapped off the Constitution. If important articles like age limit were removed, why not this very, well, meaningless? I'm just trying to rephrase what he's saying. Why not this particular, kind of article? He's saying the president delivering the State of the Nation address is something that is usual and we don't expect anything new. So that article does not make any sense for him.
Mbazira Rogers says his speech is normal. He's going to tell us how he has constructed roads. Olweni Frederick, he said express highways to Jinja, to Bombo and Mpiji. Islamic banking and agriculture, how to help farmers get irrigation facilities and boosting their market locally and internationally. Health, lastly, industrialization. Thank you very much. Well, Olweni Frederick makes it clear that he wants the president to talk about Islamic banking, which of course brings us into our Tech Note conversation. We'll discuss Islamic banking later on. But let's, on business updates. But let's step away from that and get into our Tech Note conversation. Kampala cuts an image of growing high-rise buildings with beautiful architectural designs being erected in the city almost every single day. However, the collapse of some of these buildings depicts dubious means developers apply to set up these buildings.
In some instances where buildings have come down, lives have been lost. 7 people have died in a space of just 2 weeks as a result of accidents involving collapsed buildings during heavy rains. There have also been numerous cases of the same previously. And so Kampala Capital City Authority's Physical Planning Department has often claimed that some of these buildings have been constructed without proper structural designs, while others constructed using poor building materials or without approval from the city's authority. So that is the conversation that we'll be having today. But before we apportion blame, let's try to understand what role each of the stakeholders play, right from the developer, architecture, planners, and also the regulators. And to enlighten us on this particular matter, we have Charles Nyakwebara. He is an urban lecturer at Makerere University and also a specialist in his own right. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. Nice to have you, Charles. Very many times I go through these arcades, these malls, and I see that the tiles are shaking.
Yeah, sure.
The tiles are shaking, which leaves that thought in the back of my head that if the tiles are shaking, which should be the simplest to do, then what about the building?
Yeah, the tiles may be shaking, but the structure may be strong. It's a whole process really to put up a building, like the arcades you're talking about. It takes quite a number of professionals, each doing their part in order for that building to come up. So the tiles part, they may shake, but the building may still be strong. But of course, it's one indicator that this building is a suspect in one way or the other. So yes, true, we have cases where we have those buildings which have not been managed in the process of their construction by professionals, and those could be some of the cases where you have those kinds of flaws coming up when the building is already complete.
What do you think would explain why these buildings are there anyway? Because many times you agree when you go through Kampala, even when you go through just the suburbs here and there, you find buildings that are in very, very sharp corners. You find buildings that are lingering around road reserves. You find, and these are buildings that are allowed. Of course, you can't be answerable for KCCA, but they are happening right in front of our eyes and KCCA. How does this happen?
Yeah, it's a whole process really to explain what happens really, because sometimes we have people who seek development approval from the local authorities, and having got this approval, they go on ground and do different things altogether, not necessarily what has been approved, because they may approve a building with a good building line off from the road, and probably because the city authorities are overwhelmed by the rate at which these developments are coming up. They are not able to follow each and every developer. And once someone has got approval, goes on ground, he decides to do what they have in mind,
something
not necessarily
different,
what is on the plan. And that could explain some of the developments you may find close to the road, but incidentally you find it has an approval. And maybe something that we need to take note of is that having an approval is one thing, but the second thing is that this approved plan must be inspected, must be followed up by professionals. For instance, the architects who design these buildings should be able to follow up their designs, make sure that what they designed is what is being implemented. But rarely do developers contract them up to that level. They contract them to design, and probably having a secured approval, they don't need to follow up the contracts with them. And yet it is them, the engineers, the architects, who are supposed really to supervise, make sure that this work, the way it has been designed, is the way it has been implemented.
And so what's the ultimate solution? Are we doomed?
Well, they think the authorities need to step up their efforts in doing this. And these are some of the things that really we would expect to see coming out from the authorities, like KCCA, like the municipalities and others. Step up their work, recruit as many building inspectors, for instance. I don't know if our city authority has building inspectors, because they are the people really supposed to follow up these approved plans to make sure that on behalf of the authority, this building is being put up the way we approved it. And I think on that element, there is something that needs to be done.
Would you say there is a lack of professionalism? Because as architects, as planners, as developers, you shouldn't just wake up in the morning, come up with your genius work, hand it over, and not follow it up. Don't you think there's some bit of unprofessionalism there, that you as architects, as planners, you don't demand to people? Because when someone comes to your office and they want an architectural plan of a building, the ball is in your hands.
Yeah,
it is up to you to make demands and say, look here, if I am going to give you my masterpiece, I have to see it through to the end. But because, well, maybe you're being greedy, or you don't have enough time, you have other projects, you say, there it is. Once it is approved, you move on to the next one.
No, not necessarily that. Yes, that's what is normally supposed to be the case. That you have a full-blown contract with the developer from design up to the time of commissioning the development. But some developers will tell you that I'm not yet ready to start. I need the design. Probably I'm going to secure financing. Probably I need the design. And you have to agree on the cost for the design, and they pay you for that. When it comes to development, you find someone has already developed, maybe has used another contractor to do the development. He may say, I'm going to use a firm which already has its own contract, rather architect or its own engineers. For instance, if you are going to use, say, Rocco Construction, Arab contractors, some of those established construction firms, they have their own architects, draftsmen, and engineers who could do the supervision work as well as you could have done it. So they say, we are giving you only the design contract, but the construction supervision, we shall procure another consultant to do it. And that way you cannot really claim that there is a lack of professionalism on the side of the designer.
Does that mean that they don't trust you enough to be part of the whole project? Is it lack of trust? Is it lack of money to keep you around? Is it, what is the problem there?
Cutting costs.
It could be true, as she says, cutting costs. Lack of trust may not be, because if you have really entrusted me to do the design, some people think that they can do it. And as she said, cutting the cost, and they say, no, I can do it myself. I don't need your intervention as far as construction is concerned. Once you have done the design, then you give me the design, I will go and do the work. Of course, they don't tell you that you give me the design, I will go and do it. But in their mind, that's what they think that they will do it. And of course, the end result is some of these unfortunate incidents that we see.
What does the law say with regards to who should be held accountable when a building comes down tumbling, collapses, so to speak? Who should be held accountable?
It is, see, the process, if you allow, it would quickly take you through what happens. It is not one single individual that would be held accountable. You see, it starts from the planning. Like for instance, Kampala Capital City Authority has a physical development plan, or what they call a structure plan, for the entire city, which shows the land use zones. And in these land use zones, there are designated activities that are supposed to take place there. We have got areas for residential development, areas where we put commercial developments, areas where we are supposed to live as open spaces, and other green environmental areas. Now, that's the first thing. If the plan is there and someone has chosen to put a building in an area which is supposed to be left green, first of all, why did this planner leave it green? The planner has got input in the process of coming up with this plan from other professionals from the built environment. He has input from the environmentalist, he has input from the geologist, he has input from the hydrologist, input from the civil engineer. Those people will tell him the soil structure here, tell him the water levels here. They will tell him a lot of things that this planner will put together and come up with a plan. So by him saying that this area is not supposed to be developed, there is a lot behind that why this area has been left not to be developed. But somehow, someone, probably it was someone's land, because you know that it's the land ownership remains for individuals.
Correct.
But the planning is in the hands of the authorities. So someone comes up and decides to build in such an area. So what happens? The other factors that led the planner not to allow a development in this area will still work against this development. For instance, if the water table was so near, this person's foundation will easily be undermined by the underground water, and the structure will certainly have to give way. The other things are things to deal with approval. Did this development get approval from the authorities? As I had earlier mentioned, they may get the approval, but this approval process has not been followed up by the approved plan. The development process has not been followed up by the right professionals. Some people completely don't even get approval. Some developers in the suburbs, they just put up developments over the weekend, and you find the development is already up and running. And those are some of the buildings still you will see having some of those problems. So it may not be possible to pick a single person to blame. And that's why every time an unfortunate incident of a collapsing building happens, you will see that there is a committee to investigate.
Correct.
So that they can be able to see in this process who didn't do his or her work right.
We've been having instances whereby them that approve or award disapprovals, to the contractors have also been questioned, saying that, hey, you issued an approval or a certificate, to this contractor, and they did not meet the threshold. So speak to corruption and how this actually contributes to this vice.
Corruption, I may not want to point much to it. I think the biggest thing is maybe if you had earlier asked something to deal with the law, maybe if we put in place a legal requirement that the designer should be really given the full mandate. You cannot design and stop at the design stage. Then it will become kind of a must that whoever approaches the architect to come up with a structure, a design for his development, it's automatic that this same person will do follow up with the construction, and that will give you a clear line of following up the designer up to the construction stage. Now, what we normally have is that the designer is one, but then the people who are implementing are others. So even if you know that this is the designer, you cannot run to say so and so has done shoulder work, because he just did the design, and what he designs is not what is being implemented. We have other people who are involved in the same process, like for instance the structural engineers. These give us plans for what I would call the iron bars that you put in the building, the structural design of the building. Now the guy will tell you that this column, given the height of the building that we're going to put up, will need 8 iron bars. But the developer, like you earlier said, the cutting the cost, the developer will say, let us put 6. Now, that happens when you don't have professionals supervising your construction. The guy will dictate, they put 6 iron bars. They build the building, by the 4th level, the weight of the building cannot hold, and it goes down. There are all those people who get approvals for a building. Probably it was supposed to be 1-story building. But because the guy has seen now that there is value here, I think I can get more money by adding 1 floor, just instructs the developers, add one level, but the design was for 1 floor up. So if you add 1, 2 others, you are overstretching capacity of this foundation to hold this building, and still it will have to go down. So, but the bottom line is that who is supervising that construction?
Okay.
Some of those temptations can be resisted once we have a professional who is supervising the construction work.
Thank you very much. Mr. Charles Nyakiebara, the urban lecturer at Makerere University. I hope that you're lecturing your students there to, as they get into the space of building, they know that, yes, as much as they may have the money, there are people who are supposed to plan and build these. I mean, I know a friend of mine, he has a personal builder. The one that built the toilet is the latrine, actually. He's the one that builds the house, is the one that is now going to build his commercial building. But anyway, we'll leave it like that. Thank you very much for joining us this morning and sparing time. And hopefully we have picked up something from that. The next time we want to have you here, we should get someone from KCCA so that you can go head to head with that person and they can explain to you why they're not doing things the right way.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you very much. Morning at 10 TV continues right after this.
And for just 1,000 shillings, take home this week's 20 million shillings super jackpot on MTN. Simply dial *165*33#. For Airtel, dial *185*33#. Enter your